Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The following program is produced by the Tech Talk Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeird. Welcome. I know it's just the two of us this week.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we got a great guest lined up a little later on that you were able to set us up with, Shawn. And it's all because of these books we talked about a couple of weeks ago. If you have kids, you have grandkids, nieces, nephews, this is a pretty good subject too.
So Andy talked about some snap circuits by Elenco, and he said they were awesome. It's just, it's snap circuits. You put the pieces on and make circuits and stuff. And then after the show, I said, Andy, I know you talked about snap circuits, but I got to show you these books that I have that I got Max about a year ago. And so I pulled up these two books. They're called Computer Engineering for Babies.
Right.
It's very fitting for me, right? But it's these very basic books that you flip open and they push buttons and you do basic logic gates that are computer functions. Here's a wire that makes a circuit.
Love it.
And or gates, not or and or gates. Things like that. So, and I thought, you know what? Why don't we reach out to the author and get him on the show?
Yeah.
So later on the show, we're going to sit down and talk to Chase Roberts, who created these books and kind of the journey he took to get these books out and published, and kind of a little bit about the development of the book. So I'm just so excited about these books, and I know that if you're into technology at all, even if you're not a baby, like these are fun to just flip through. Like it's because he made a second one called Computer Engineering for Big Babies, which just expands on, you start getting into muxes and decoders and read writes and stuff like that. So it's just an incredible set of books. You can find them on his website at computerengineeringforbabies.com. Super long domain, but it is what it is. But so we'll talk to him later in the show, and I'm so excited for that interview.
It's kind of interesting, Shawn, because Michelle reached out to me and asked me the question about digital books. Now, this is not a digital book. This is an actual physical book that kids can manipulate and read and learn from and see bright lights and switches and all this fun stuff. But asked about digital books, and I know there's people listening that have probably thought, I want to write a book. There's people that say, I want to write a book about my life, a life project, and how can you do that? It's been made more available now for those that want to write books to be able to put together a book that a family could read online, a digital book, and maybe, who knows, even get it printed out. Some people have been going that route too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any digital books for the kids yet. I know that Caitlin has her e-reader and she has digital books that way. But I've talked specifically about this type of book in the past. The hands-on, the tactile feeling, the sound, because you can hear it clicking, if you can hear that. Right. And there's visual feedback, there's tactical feedback. That's so important for the development of children, and it's so important for people. I just think, as a whole, to have that type of physical relationship with books. Yeah. And so I know Max and Daniel both have played with these books. Daniel's still a little bit too young to understand these, but Max can manipulate these, and he understands. And he understands that, if I push the button, the light lights up. If I push both these, it doesn't light up. If I push one or the other, it does. So it's just super basic functions that run everyday life that are in these books. So just, again, super excited for this interview coming up.
All right, cool. There's a lot of tech news that has happened this week. We got some listener questions as well. And one of the things we kind of touched on last week on the show was DJI was going to have another announcement, and that announcement has been made. We weren't sure exactly what it was, and I know you're the DJI guy.
But it wasn't the announcement I thought it was going to be. No. There's another one coming.
Oh, there is? Oh, wow.
So when I texted you the other day saying, hey, DJI is going to announce a new product, what do you think it is? And we kind of talked about it internally. And then they announced it, and I was like, wait, there's still a teaser on their website for another product launch that's not this. So this was I call them ninja releases or shadow releases, right? This one, there was there was nothing about it. They just dropped it.
And I wanted to ask, okay, so for this announcement, it was the Osmo Mobile 7, all right, and it's a gimbal arm, but a lot of our listeners may not know what a gimbal arm is. So I'm just going to ask you, Shawn, because I don't know if you have one, but what is a gimbal arm and why would you use it?
So a gimbal arm is it's a handheld device that you mount your phone onto, and it stabilizes it in 3 axes. So left, right, forward, backwards, up, and down.
Okay.
So that when you are, say you're walking down a hiking trail and you have your phone on there, it's going to give you buttery smooth footage as you're walking. Like, it's going to take out the bumps and the steps. It's going to compensate for all that movement, and it's going to keep your phone level, stable, and shooting just crystal clean, stabilized video. They've made this product for over a decade, right? The original Osmos came out, I think, back in 2013, maybe. I'd have to look, but this one is specifically tied to your mobile device. So your phone goes on it, you run the app, or you record on your phone. You can tie it together with Bluetooth. This one specifically has some new features. It's got some functionality that can go back. It's got a camera that shoots the other way. I have the specs here. It's light. It's super light. 3-axis gimbal. Like I said, it's got the X, Y, and Z axis. It's got the compact tripod design, so it extends and it retracts super easily. What the feature that caught me off guard was 10 hours of battery life.
Okay, so it is powered, and that helps. That controls that stabilization,
you just
right?
charge it and plug it in, but it's powered. So you're going to feel, as you're holding it, you're going to feel it. It's going to give you a little bit of resistance on your wrist as it's actively moving magnets around to try and stabilize your stuff. It's got Bluetooth connectivity for your phone, and it's priced so competitively.
Yeah.
They made 2 versions of this one, and I'll go over the specs on the Pro version. But the Osmo Mobile 7, it's only $89.
That's not bad. All right,
that's pretty good. So if you're an amateur filmmaker, if you're just shooting stuff for fun with your kids, and you want stabilized footage, like, this is a no-brainer. You buy this for your phone, you slap your phone on it, you get some recording.
Now this does not have an extension arm, so you can't extend it to a higher. This one for the OM7, the regular OM7. That doesn't have that. So that's why it's $89. There's one that's a little more pricier.
Right. So the Osmo Mobile 7P or 7 Pro includes a couple extra. The module acts as a wireless receiver for their DJI mic. So if you have somebody on their DJI mic, it can be received on the device and record to your phone. A 8-inch telescoping arm. That's a decent sized arm for a tripod. And it gesture control. So if you're shooting yourself, you can do gesture control. I don't know what they are. I haven't read that far into it. But then it also has a light built in.
Right.
And it has a fill light. So it's got
cool.
a turned camera. It has a camera that will face you, so you can do vlogging and all that stuff. And so the battery life is a little decreased on that one. So you get about 4 to 5 hours with that one. And this one's priced, I still think, very competitively for what it offers, at $149.
That's not too bad. I have a friend, just to give you an idea, I have a friend named Larry that the wetlands area that we have here in Tucson, which is a lot of brush, and there's, just an area you could hike, and it's real nice. But terrain is a little difficult. And he's gone out there to do videos before, and he'll hold the camera with his hand. And it's shaky. And it's like you're watching it, and you're like, okay, I'm getting motion sickness here. With something like this from DJI, this would make that nice and smooth and more watchable. Almost, I want to say, and DJI, we call them the drone people, almost like a drone is following them, capturing the action, because it's so nice and smooth.
Yeah, but I mean, I imagine with this extended arm, you could get all sorts of creative with mounting options and how it's attached to your backpack, it's attached to your car. But again, right, you're using your phone for the content to be recorded to. So it relies on the Mio app, I believe it's called. The Mimo app for DJI. It's not something that I expected. But again, I was blown away that I noticed today because I wanted to look up the specs for the show. It wasn't the product that I thought they were going to release, right? And they still have a teaser on their webpage for a different device to be released on another date here in the near future, which nobody knows what it is. The teaser picture looks pretty wild, but there was a teaser picture for this one,
right?
But I thought it looked like on top of a screen. But then if you go back and look at it, it's definitely on top of a phone.
Kind of wonder, all right, so you think about the big players in that field when it comes to action cameras. You've got DJI. GoPro is still in the game, and then Insta360. And, it's funny because people are suddenly realizing what Insta360 is all about. You may be driving down the road, you'll see a truck or a car or maybe a motorcycle, and they've got a little stick that's just kind of sticking up. That can be an Insta360, and what that can do is really capture a 360-degree access of what's going on. And people have, when they see footage back, they don't understand how is he being filmed. It's usually by that Insta360. Do you think DJI might be going that route and maybe trying to get into some of that market space with a 360 camera?
I don't. Maybe. I've been part of the 360 world since 2011, right? When they first started coming out with the Theta, the Reoc Theta, and a couple of the other 360 cams, and it's so hard to find a platform that supports 360 viewing. Now, the ultimate goal for 360 viewing is for the user to experience the angles in whatever view they want, right? And YouTube was really the only platform that allowed it to happen, where the user had control. I'll give you a link to my YouTube page because I have several videos that I shot in 360 that you can control. It's a cool experience, but it's cumbersome.
Yeah.
It's not convenient. And we wanted to do, so I don't think DJI is going to get in. Maybe, but they're focused on, they don't need to be in the 360 market, right?
No.
But there's just not a viewer base for it. It's not easy to view on your phone in 360, which when I was at Fox, we teased the idea of doing, hey, let's put a 360-degree camera in the middle of the studio so that when they switch sets, somebody watching live on YouTube could then pan to the other set on their own
wow.
and have the experience of being in set.
Right.
But then it didn't work on the phone. It was a miserable experience. The Facebook experience was miserable. So there just wasn't. So a lot of the 360 stuff you see is all post-processed,
right?
Because you can you then as the creator have the capability of tailoring the experience to your viewership, and that without that part of it, it just wasn't a great platform. So you saw a huge spike in 360 cameras early on, and then they just kind of dwindled off, and now it's basically Insta360. GoPro Max is one of them, but there are several other contenders in it that just didn't do it very well.
Speaking of GoPro, I noticed that they have put together kind of and I don't think it's the first time they've done it, but it's a mini kind of GoPro, reduced price. You be able to pick it up a little less, and it's for people who want a smaller footprint camera that they can mount, because you can buy all kinds of mounts. You can mount it on your head, on your helmet, on your chest. You can mount it on a car. You can mount it just about anywhere, even on the wing of an airplane. But with GoPro, so you get that action experience with this brand new GoPro Hero. And I'm trying to think of the actual model number of it, but it's something new that the Hero 11, I believe, that they'll be able to find in the stores.
Yeah, it's just called it is just called the GoPro Hero.
Okay.
I was right when we were talking about the show.
Yeah.
And I believe if I think back far enough, I believe they started doing this with either the 8 or the 9, right? Because if you go back, way back to 2008, right, you had the original GoPro Hero. Then you had the Hero Plus. Then you had the Hero Plus. Then you had the GoPro Hero 2, and then the 3, and then the 3 Plus, and then with the 4, they started getting into this weird nomenclature where it was like GoPro Hero 4.
Yeah.
GoPro Hero Silver. GoPro Hero 4 White. GoPro Hero 4 Black.
I still have the Hero 3, and I love them. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. This camera that I am filming this segment with is a 3 Plus, and
Right.
that is my favorite GoPro. It's before the 4 really kind of changed the layout a little bit. It kind of changed how they deal with picture time lapses and stuff like that. It's like the 3 Plus is my go-to. I've got probably a dozen of them now through finding them used on eBay, people getting rid of them because they don't use it because they bought the newest one and they didn't want it anymore. So I've just been collecting them, the 3 Plus, and I love it. I have several of them.
They're HDMI out, so you can put them into an 810 Mini, which is great.
So it's just a micro HDMI out and a USB power.
Yeah.
And I don't even have a battery in it, so it's not going to heat up the battery or anything. So I use them all the time. And most of my time lapses I have posted either are from my Nikon or a Hero 3 Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So GoPro's just been in the business so long, they're doing things right. But the nomenclature started changing over the years, right? So I don't know when they introduced the Session. So there's another version of a GoPro that was just this version. It's a cube. It is a very small cube, completely sealed, so you can't put a skeleton case on or anything, called the Hero Session. My parents bought it for their motorhome because they wanted to have it in the dash while they were driving, and they loved it for a period of time, but it didn't work as well because it had to be powered all the time. So they just bought a regular Garmin dash cam and replaced it. So they just gave me the Session.
Yeah.
I've used that for time lapses, but there's no way to externally power it. So it just was not the greatest. It still shoots great video and stuff, but it just didn't have the flexibility of the Hero model, the bigger Hero models. So then, like I said, I think the 9, the GoPro Hero 9 is when they first started doing just the Hero. And I think they made a base model. I think it just did 1080p at the time because 4K still wasn't really a thing in the encoding and the battery life and stuff. But the new one that is paired with the Hero 12 is just called the GoPro Hero. It does offer 4K video. It's more compact, lightweight, and offers some of the stabilization features, but doesn't give you the flexibility of doing 4K 120, 4K 240. You know, you lose a lot of the depth of flexibility, but for a cheaper price point too.
Yeah, it's $249 with that digital stabilization, and it's 5.3K 60 and 2.7K 240. So I mean, it's, if you're looking for a cheaper solution, but I don't know, I'd probably spend the extra money and get with that maybe regular GoPro that could certainly work for you, and you get a little better quality out of it if you want to.
So I just ChatGPT'd the question.
All right.
The GoPro Hero was first launched alongside the GoPro Hero 6. So I was 3 versions off. So it was a little bit further back than I thought. March 2018.
Okay.
It included a lower 10 megapixel photo resolution from 12.
Mm-hmm.
And a resolution of 1080p 60.
Oh, wow.
So the Hero 6 could do 4K.
Right.
But yeah, this one only did 1080p 60. So a little bit further back. I get stuck on the 9 because I think the 9 was the first version that offered a jump from the 12 megapixel still images to the 22 megapixel.
Right.
So that's the only reason I would get a newer version of the GoPro, is to jump from that 12 megapixel still image to a 22 megapixel. Okay.
All right. Good stuff. Well, that's what's out there in the action camera market if you're thinking about doing that. I don't know if you saw the news about the 5090. Were you thinking of upgrading your graphics card?
No.
In your computer? Well,
I'm not playing any, like, maybe when Max wants to get into video games or something, like, I'll upgrade. But
right.
My 3060 that I have is way more than enough to play, all the old DOS games that I've downloaded and played. Like, DOS, those games don't require anything, right? So I'm playing World of Warcraft, Diablo 4, a couple things. The only thing I'd be concerned about is the new Monster Hunter Wilds game comes out towards the end of the month. And apparently my friends that are in the beta for that are saying that it's eating graphics cards for breakfast. So we'll see what happens there, but I don't anticipate the need for me to upgrade anytime in the near future.
Well, you do a lot of video editing like me. having a graphics card that can handle it, though, is also important, because when you're editing video, that's also going to be an area where you're going to want to have better graphics. But again, do you need to go all the way up to a 5090? And that's, the latest one. People are camping outside Micro Center, trying to get it. A lot of people said it's because, people were, scalping them. They buy them at a, regular price. And then as the market, starts to dwindle, the prices go up and people will be willing to spend more money on them. That's not going to be the case, apparently, with the 5090. They had an influx of materials that are used to create it. And with that means there's going to be a lot more in the channel. And that means that some of the people that did buy them for the purpose of scalping or reselling are probably not going to get the return they were hoping for on some of those graphics cards.
Well, first of all, those people suck. But
that's it, putting it lightly, right?
It's interesting. So you saw this, and we've talked about this. I say this a lot, right? We talk about this on the show quite a bit. Is the consumerism of going and buying a product and finding it's been scalped is very frustrating.
Yeah.
And you think back 10, 15, 20 years, to go get a product that launched, you had to go physically to a brick and mortar store and either hope they had it in stock, call ahead, find out they had it, or wait in line.
Yeah.
Or go to a midnight release. And you saw a trend leading away from that. Oh, just pre-order online, just buy it online. You don't have to wait in line. And then that kind of just waned. You didn't see that anymore. Well, then all of a sudden the scalpers said, well, now I can just do it online. I don't have to go to the store to buy 10. I can just write a bot that scoops them all up. And the companies don't care. Mm-hmm. They're selling the product. They're making the money. But the consumer base does care. And there's been a sour attitude towards scalpers for a significant amount of time. And you're actually seeing a trend back to stores, brick and mortar stores, getting an allotment and only selling one to each customer.
Yeah.
And they're not selling them online as much. So you're actually, it's weird because you saw this huge flow of only online sales. And now it's back to in-store with a larger stock. And now people are camping out again and waiting overnight. That never went away, but it was for larger ticket items. But for the more popular items again, I think you're going to start to see more again of the community building around going and camping out overnight. Now, you won't see that for video game releases or because it's too much money for them to spend on that. But it's an interesting trend I think you'll see come back a little bit.
All right, we have to take a quick break. We come back. Our special guest on the show. Now, the title of these books, if our listeners want to go online again, Shawn.
Computer Engineering for Babies and Computer Engineering for Big Babies.
All right. Chase Roberts is his name. And you can go to the website and get more information about that. We're going to talk about the guy that created these two very fun books that are geared at the younger set and the older set. We'll have some fun with it, too. I kind of like that. That's going to be coming up on Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeerd. Follow us on X at Tech Talk Radio.
We'll be right back.
Now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
So right before the break, we were talking about Computer Engineering for Babies, which is a book that I had shown Andy a couple weeks ago. Because he sent me the Elenco Spy Kit, which Max loves. And so I showed him these books. It's Computer Engineering for Babies and Computer Engineering for Big Babies by Chase Roberts, who we happen to have on the show with us today.
The guy that put it all together. Chase, welcome to the show. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
This is like really cool. Shawn was showing me these and I thought, well, you know what? It's kind of a neat way for children to understand technology, and it makes blinky things go and it could flip switches and everything. What made you decide to kind of put this all together?
Oh, man. It was a bunch of different things. Probably the main driver was when my wife and I first had our baby. He was maybe 1 at the time, and he loved light switches. And I would just hold him next to a light switch, and he would flip it and then turn and make sure that, like, the light turned on. And then he would turn back and flip it again and turn. And he would do that for an hour if I could hold him that long. Wow. And finally, I was like, we got to just move this into a sit-down experience because my back hurts. So that was kind of like the main driver. Another partial inspiration was when I was going to university, there was a book that I saw floating around on the internet called HTML for Babies.
Yes.
And I got married. I had my kid. Somebody bought me that book, and I'm going through it, and it was just garbage. They just took random words and put little brackets around it, and it was like doll with brackets, and I'm like, that's not HTML. That's just word. Those are just baby words with brackets.
Yeah.
Anyway, so kind of those two experiences came together, and I thought, what if we made a book that actually delivered on the promise of kind of introducing just like these basic concepts. And I studied computer engineering in school, and like, you know, I'm learning about these different gates, OR gates and gates, and I'm like, this stuff's simple enough that a baby 1 or 2 or 3-year-olds could pick this up and could play with it and learn it and like understand what's going on. An AND gate is not that terribly complicated. So all of those kind of came together, and 5 years later, I launched a Kickstarter, and it did really well. And so I've continued making books, and here I am.
What were some of the big steps you had to take to get the book out?
Oh, man, so many. I mean, just figuring out how to make something that could be produced in a large scale is just so difficult. I mean, it doesn't seem like it should be difficult, but like if you've never done it before and you're figuring it out yourself, there's just so many hurdles that you get stuck on that you would never expect. I thought I knew how to make a circuit board, and so I kind of designed my own board, and I had originally laid it out with discrete chips for the AND gate and the OR gate and everything, and I had the board made, and then I'm trying to populate the board, and I have no soldering skills because I've been working in app development for the last 10 years. So I've got my soldering iron out, and I'm so bad at it. Populated the whole board, and of course it doesn't work. Just that process, you know, you learn like, oh, here's why it's not working, and you figure it out, and then you iterate. It took me 10 prototypes to get something that kind of worked. The prototyping phase was just iteration after iteration. I almost gave up on it several times because I don't know about you guys, but I get a new idea and I get so excited about doing something new. New things are shiny, you know, and it's like, I love new shiny things.
Yep.
And it's hard to put energy into older ideas. Finally, my wife, though, she was like, look, you're getting distracted with all these different things. Like that computer engineering for babies idea, that's your best one. Like you should just finish that idea before you get too distracted on some of these others. So she really pushed me to finish the book, and in my mind, finishing was just like, I got to get this to Kickstarter and put it out there. And my expectation was, I'll put it on Kickstarter. Friends and family will maybe chip in a couple grand, and the project will not fund on Kickstarter, and I'll end up kicking in $10,000 of my own money to do a production run of 1,000 books, and then I'll hand them out to trick-or-treaters every Halloween. That was what I expected.
It had a different effect, though, didn't it?
Way surpassed expectations. I did that, and I posted it to Kickstarter and all my friends and family, and it raised 1,000 or 2. And then I was like, well, what next? And I thought, well, I should post this to Reddit because I'm a casual Reddit user.
Right.
So there's an Arduino subreddit, and I posted it there. I was thinking, like, these are my people. If anybody's gonna like get it, like, it's the Arduino guys.
Right.
And it was made, like, the first versions were made with an Arduino. I got away from discrete chips because I needed the analog to digital converters. So here's the book, and it uses light sensors to know which page you're open to, because it's the same 2 buttons on every page. And so there are little holes cut in the corner of the page, and those let light in, and there's light sensors in the very back of the book. There's a circuit board, and there's some photo transistors that we're pulling to see how much light is coming into through each hole. And then based on those light readings, we're able to figure out, okay, they're on page 3.
Got it. All right.
Originally, I was trying to just do discrete components. It wasn't working to just these light sensors to be a Boolean on or off. It needed some more nuance than that. So I needed the analog to digital converters of a microcontroller, and to be able to write code to say, like, okay, if this one's coming in really bright and this one's really dim, then, you know, this page is probably closed. Whereas before, you know, if you're in a really bright environment, even if the page is closed, it might still get some light coming in, you know,
right,
if you're outside on a bright day, you know. And then how does that differ from if you're in a dark room and you're on the last page and all the sensors are open, so there's just kind of tuning for different light environments. I'm using an Arduino now, and so I thought, okay, the Arduino subreddit, those are my people. They're gonna love this, and I kind of posted it, and then my family, we went camping, and so I'm up in the mountains, and I'm checking my phone, and I'm not even looking at the Kickstarter anymore. I'm just looking at Reddit, because I've never had a Reddit post do so well in my entire life. Like, it's just it's getting so many upvotes, and every time I check it, it's got another 100, 150 upvotes. And I'm just blown away. I'm like, oh my God,
wow.
People love it was just this stupid video that I made of me like holding the book, going through it. Anyway, and I was like, people are loving it, and it's getting so many upvotes. So that was just really exciting. And then at the end of the day, I think the first day it had raised like $12,000, and my goal was like 10. Mind blown that I was able to do this on the first day.
I found your book via probably that Reddit post.
Oh, really?
So
oh, yeah.
That's where I found it. It came on Reddit, and then I went to your Kickstarter and I kickstarted it. The power of the internet, man. I'm a big techie, right? And I saw this. I was like, always wanted to build something with latches, buttons. I was going to build my own so we could have light switches, LEDs, all that stuff. And then I saw this. I was like, this is it. This is what I wanted to build, and he built it. So it's incredible, and it's. The people that I've shown it to, they're like, oh, what's that? Computer engineering for babies? And then they flip through it and they go, oh, this makes sense. And you can see them in their brain. The processes are clicking. So it's really just a unique concept that you said took something very simple and just made an awesome product out of it.
Well, everything could be, and I don't know if you found this out, Chase, but everything could be a learning experience for a child, especially with if this then. Because, it's all cause and effect. Yesterday my grandson was over, and we were like, he was playing around with a flashlight. I just handed him a flashlight, and he was having so much fun with it because I showed him how it turns off and on. And that was what was kind of an experience with him. And I think the books kind of help establish that that cause and effect. Kids really like that because then they feel like they're in control of it in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. For younger kids, it's just about smashing buttons and seeing lights turn on.
Yeah.
But as they get a little bit older, and even like I've had people report, oh yeah, my 2-year-old finally figured out the AND gate, and it's like you got to press both at the same time to get it to light up. And like, it's just kind of fun to see kids, play with it. And yeah, originally it's just like hitting the button, seeing a light turn on. But then, like, they start to learn that, each page is different. Like, there's some subtleties here, and they start to kind of figure those out, and that's fun to be a part of.
Could this turn into, Chase, even more? I mean, we have the 2 now, right? Could there be more in this, in like a series of books, or even maybe a different type of media?
I've thought a lot about how to do a 3rd computer engineering for babies book. I'd really like to get something that goes all the way to like a working computer that could run instructions.
Wow.
But I don't think it's going to happen in a baby book.
Yeah.
There's too many steps that I would want to like hit. It seems unfair to be like, okay, we've done muxes, we've done decoders. Here's an adder, here's an ALU, and here's a program counter, and now you've got a computer. It just seems like a big leap.
So take a step back, right? So you published the first one through Kickstarter. It funded. It did really well. Then you decided, well, let's make a second book. Talk a little bit about that step in deciding, well, here's the first one. Let's make it a whole other book.
I did the first one. I don't know why I felt like, hey, we should do a sequel. And I got really excited about the idea of having switches instead of buttons. I guess I was looking at some of the next components that you learn when you're taking computer engineering at the university, and it's like, well, after you learn about gates, then you learn about multiplexers and decoders. And so I was kind of thinking, all right, let's do those. And you get the switches in, and there's only 2 switches in the book. Some of my prototypes had like 6 switches so that you could really control every input signal for the book. I ended up getting away from that just to simplify. So there's 2 switches.
You have to design like each page, don't you? So you have the page, it flips over. So you had to design, okay, the cutout is going to be here, and this is where the switch is going to go, and how this is going to apply to that page and then the next page. it all had to flow
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, just designing. I mean, because you can't move the switches around. So it's like, okay, graphically, we have to fit everything into this area, on each page because we need room for the switches and the LEDs, and those can't move because we're reusing them on each page. So there's a lot of design stuff that goes in, and my wife's really good at that. She helps me figure all that stuff out because I'm just like, get something that functions that's made out of cardboard, and we're there. She's like, no, it's got to be pretty.
How does a book, Chase, get it? It sounds weird to ask, but how does it get its power? I mean,
there's a small battery in the back, so it's battery powered.
Shawn is a big fan of it, and from what we've seen so far, his kids love it. I think other listeners who have kids, grandkids like me, would love it as well. And again, it's kind of an introductory experience to that cause and effect, if this, then that, and a kind of a study in engineering, which doesn't hurt to introduce them to that stuff and make it fun. That's the thing. They seem to have fun with it too. Once you had kids, you get married, you have kids. Yeah, it doesn't it kind of change your world a little? Because I know for Shawn it did. I've known Shawn since he's had his kids.
Hugely changes your world.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All of a sudden, your free time is next to zero, and like just the things that you're concerned, like the problems you have, are so much different than before you had kids, right?
Yep.
Now it's like, how do I keep my kids silent on an airplane for 4 hours? Right? Like that's my biggest problem. And that was actually another like inspiration for the book. It was like, I don't want it to make noise. I don't want there to be a speaker on it. I just want it like to be as quiet as possible. Like the buttons still make a little bit of a clickety clack noise when you click them.
Yeah.
But like this can be used on an airplane. That was kind of one of the requirements. Is like, this will not drive anybody too crazy,
I like it.
Now that we've talked about the book, where can our listeners go pick up a copy of this book, or both?
Yeah, so I just sell them primarily on my website, computerengineeringforbabies.com. Or if you just search computer engineering for babies, like I think it's the first thing that shows up.
Cool. We'll put a link on our blog and our website as well, but computerengineeringforbabies.com. We hope our listeners check this out. I want to thank you for spending the time with us and coming on and talking about it. Some great stuff.
Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you, Chase, for coming on Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeird.
You can find us on YouTube at Tech Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
And now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
So everybody knows that I love GoPro and DJI. Mm-hmm. And I love action cameras.
Yeah.
But I'm going to rattle off a couple of companies that tried to get into the action cam business. And some of these are still available.
Oh, wow.
That you would not think, why would they make an action cam?
Okay.
Or maybe they did buy an action cam and you own one. Like, if you own one of these companies' action cams, let me know because I'd love to see it. Nikon.
Really? I didn't know they made one.
They made a 170-degree field of view and a 360 cam called the Key Mission. It's a weird. It's weird looking, but it's pretty wild.
All right.
Kodak.
Really?
Right. Right. I say that and you think, wait, an analog company, like film company? No, they have an action camera. It's called the SP1 action camera. It's still available for $249.
Wow.
I don't think it's very good.
Yeah.
I would have to try one or get one to try it. Contour. That's a company it's their own company. They made one. It was pretty popular. Garmin
made an action camera?
It's called the Verb, VIRB.
Wow.
Yep. It's no longer available. It was pretty widely popular for, the people that used Garmin pretty exclusively. Sony made one.
Wow.
Very, very early on.
Right.
With like very not poor resolution, but like just basic HD, like 1080p 60.
Yeah.
And then Polaroid.
Polaroid. That company will just not go away. It just keeps saying, no, people want our stuff. And then they put it out and people buy their stuff.
But I think the Polaroid one is just a joke because you can get it for $19.99 apparently.
Well, okay, so Vivitar did one. And I remember Gloria was at Big Lots and she saw them for $20, $25 and bought 2 of them with the idea of giving them as gifts. And we never did. I still have them wrapped up in the boxes. We should give one away.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty wild just to think those companies like made these action cameras that just these prominent companies back, film and digital camera companies made these huge leaps in trying to be in that action game, and then it just fell apart.
Yeah.
You couldn't compete with GoPro, DJI, Insta360. Like, you just couldn't compete.
All right, we have listener questions, and this one coming from our old stomping grounds of La Quinta. This is from Martha. And honestly, you may run into the same thing. You may have been told something when it comes to technology, and you may have not understood what the ramifications or implications were. But here's the question. Hey, guys, I have a bunch of old games on an old Windows XP computer, okay? And I really like playing them. I remember my mom used to play a slot machine game on hers, and she loved it. And the email goes on. It says, my friend told me just having it, which would be Windows XP just having the computer on could get it infected with a virus because it's old. Is that true? I don't think the old games are infected with viruses. Would love to know. Again, that's Martha and La Quinta. There have been people who've been told, don't turn on your Windows XP computer because it could get you a virus. And you may be thinking, well, how could I get a virus? There are some things to think about, though. If you have a Windows XP computer and you want to use it, and you do have those old games like my mom's slot machine game, or maybe you have, Tomb Raider, or we've talked about, that was a fun game.
I spent a lot of time playing that game on the PlayStation, and
right?
I have one very vivid memory of that game.
Do you?
When you're in a game and you know you're coming up against a boss or something,
the
you
boss,
save,
yeah,
right? That you don't save now because it's all cloud save, whatever. But you always had to save your game,
right?
Back then, and I was deep into. I was several hours into the game, right? And I ended up like leaping out of a window on accident, and I panic saved.
Oh no!
Mid-air.
So what happened every time you went back to the game?
The game, I just hit the ground and died. Hours, but there was no, I hadn't saved other than that. So
there was no going back.
So bad. So Tomb Raider, that's my Tomb Raider story. But
I love it.
I mean, the old games are fun. They're nostalgic, right? But they don't always hold up, right?
Well, we've talked about Good Old Games, which is a great website. You can find some of those older games that will run on your equipment now. And it's funny though, I've done this before. I think Castle Wolfenstein is one of those where I went back to play in it, and I forgot. Back then, the graphics were amazing, but you take a look at it now, and it's like, whoa, I actually played this and liked it, because they're a lot different.
Okay, so let's take a time machine and go back 2 decades. Go back 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. 2003. I know that's weird to say this.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago. PC Magazine, PC Gamer, all these they came with demo CDs.
Yep. They used to come on the show all the time. PC Gamer used to come on Tech Talk. Yep.
And I had a disc for Apogee Games.
Oh, I remember that.
Had a list. Had a handful of games from Apogee Games, and I played the ever living crap out of those games on the app. Just the demos. And they always said, "Here, it's not shareware. Don't sell it. It's not free."
Yeah.
But I never bought the full versions.
You just had fun playing the games, yeah.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I stumbled across Good Old Games, and I just started looking up these games that I used to play. Blake Stone, Aliens of Gold,
right?
Hocus Pocus, Hexen. All these are available on Good Old Games.
Oh my gosh!
You know how much time I've sunk into these old games again because it's so nostalgic for me.
Do you remember? Do you remember Nocturnal?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one as well. Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, yes, there are ways to play old games now. In reference to the XP computer, don't connect it to the internet.
All right, so you can turn it on, just don't have it connected to the internet.
There's actually a lot of people of the current generation want XP machines to run XP because of the pinball game, a couple of the solitaire games, Minesweeper, etc., that you can't get now.
Right.
That don't come with Windows anymore. So there are some nostalgic games on there that you can keep, but if you have the hardware and it's running, like you can keep it and keep playing those games, but there are alternatives to getting some of those games maybe as digital remakes or remasters. I know that Blizzard and Activision remade a handful of the World of Warcraft games as new capable Windows 11 capable versions of Warcraft 1, Orcs and Humans, Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2, a couple of those older games that are capable of running on newer systems versus running on XP or older systems. So
yeah, if I was to go back and play like one game that I used to play a lot, it got a lot of my time, was from a company called Nova Logic. I don't know if you remember them. And they put out a game called Joint Ops, and it was like a military shooter. I want to say it's not first person. I want to say it was like a third person shooter game, from behind. And it was just, I spent so much time playing that. And again, that's one of those games where I saw it, recently, and wow, that was really, the graphics on it were just not that great, but they held my attention back then. It was a fun game. What about you? One game, if you go back to and play, that you haven't. Diablo 2. Which one? Diablo 2? Yeah.
Hands down. The game I have spent the most time in my life playing is Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Played it when it was new in 2001 or 2002, whenever it came out. The expansion for Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction came out when I was a senior in high school. And this was really my first foray into figuring out how to connect multiple computers together to play games.
Right.
Was PC games. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And trying to play on a 44K dial-up modem.
Oh, man.
Because that's all we had in my house growing up.
Yeah.
It was 44. We were good, lucky if we got 44K on a good day.
Yep.
But being able to, this is just a fun computer story. My friend Carl and I loved playing, and we always wanted to play online together because he would always be at my house. He spent a lot of time at my house growing up, but his cousin lived in Scottsville, and we always wanted to play together. So we figured out how to take my parents' computer, the desktop, and use the dial-up modem. But then we bridged the 100 meg network NIC and did a crossover cable to a laptop, so it shared the internet across the internal onboard NIC.
That's how you had a LAN party. So
that both computers could be on the internet at the same time. Now, Diablo 2 is not a very intensive game, so we successfully did this for a long time, where he would be playing on the laptop and I'd be playing on the desktop, and we had a great experience online, which was weird to say, but that's kind of my first real computer networking story that I have, thinking back on how I connected to play Diablo 2 on Battle.net.
So for Martha, honestly, you have a Windows XP computer, you want to use it, maybe your programs are on there, your photos. Just the good safety tip would be just don't connect it to the internet. Just turning it on is not going to get you infected unless it's already infected. So again, you should be okay to go ahead and do that. Talking to the internet, I recently talked with a friend of mine named Chad, who is not very unhappy. He lives in Saudita. He's very unhappy with the internet service he's been getting. So he asked me, he said, what do I think about Starlink? Because his options are limited. And I said, I really don't know too much about it. And I don't know if there's any listeners that have Starlink that are in Saudi. I would love to hear your thoughts of how this has worked for you. And just drop me a line, techguys@techtalkradio.com. Have you heard anything, Shawn? I mean, I know you're in Indiana. Are people using it there? Have you heard any reviews on it at all?
So my experience with Starlink is very limited.
Okay.
In the broadcast industry, it's actually widely used as I don't want to say a tertiary backup, but so you have an uplink truck. So you go to do an event, and you have an uplink truck that is connected to the internet. So that's their main transmission path, is the internet, public internet or dedicated fiber. Okay, so if that connection goes down or it gets overloaded and the bandwidth stinks, you go to what they call terrestrial backup, which is just a satellite uplink truck that has a big satellite dish on it and actually hits a transponder on a satellite and transmits and decodes the signal. A lot of places are skipping that second step of bringing an uplink truck and just relying on 1, 2, or 3 Starlink modules bonded together.
Okay.
So then they use that as their internet backup, So they have their primary video transmission path using up whatever their bandwidth is on that, but then they offload all of their, internet, for downloading files or just using the internet off to Starlink, but keeping that as their backup path for their transmission if needed. And that seems to be the going thing now is these remote productions when you can't get a satellite truck or it's too expensive, they're just relying on Starlink, but bonding multiple units together and then receiving it on the other end. So
all right, I will
that's
say
my only experience with Starlink.
Right.
I know that my parents have looked at it for internet at their house because they still can't get. They live out in the boonies in northern Michigan and very rural. No cable company's going to run 4,000 feet of cable to my parents' house to service one address. Right? It's like doesn't make sense.
All right, so here's a good thing to think about. From what I understand, Starlink does a 30-day trial. As far as you can get the equipment, test it out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, you should be able to. And again, it's going to depend on where you're buying it from. You might want to check. You should be able to take it back and then be able to say it just didn't work for you. So again, that's something to think about.
The key thing about Starlink though is if you want to, you can get stuck because you can. I don't know if they bundled it all together now, but there's a residential module, and then there's the mobile module, right? So there's two different modules that they sell. One is for you only keep it at your house,
mm-hmm.
and then the other one you pay a higher premium for it, but it can go on top of your RV, and you can use it while traveling. So just keep in mind if you're looking for that, if you plan on traveling, I know Arizona is a big destination for RVers. If you're looking at it for traveling, you might need to just do a little bit more research on what it's going to cost you to be mobile and have access in places that you're going to be traveling.
All right, we got to take another quick break. We come back with more of Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeerd. Find us on the web at techtalkradio.com. We'll be back.
And now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
I want to thank our guest again coming on earlier today with us, Chase Roberts, who's got these two really great books that Shawn, you found and told us about. You found through a Kickstarter, which was pretty amazing stuff.
Well, yeah, in the interview, right, he talks about how he posted on Reddit, and I'm fairly certain that's how I found out about these books, was just browsing on Reddit and came across it, and then just went and bought them, because I was like, you'll hear you heard it in the interview, like I talked about how I wanted to build something like this for Max, and then he did it, and I was like, this is great. So we're going to push his website.
Yeah, what is it? What is the website?
Computerengineeringforbabies.com.
Computerengineeringforbabies.com. Is that BABIES?
Yeah.
.com.
Yeah. Computerengineeringforbabies.com. So I highly encourage you, if you have kids in the 2 to 3 to 4 year old range, my kids love these books. You could tell, I showed them in the interview, they're beat up. They've got teeth marks on them. Max ripped the paper off one of the pages. But it's so much fun to watch them figure out how the buttons work.
Yeah, we will say
it's cool.
We will say he is working on something else that he told us about.
He's working on a new book that I'm so excited for, and I hope when he listens to this, he will send me a prototype because I would love to play with it.
We'll keep you posted on that. Again, make sure you follow him on the website, and then you could order the books there. All the information you'll be able to find. Want to thank him again for coming on the show. Hopefully next week everybody will be back feeling a little better. I know that Justin was been on the weather, and Matt's got some stuff going on, so we'll be back with more of Tech Talk Radio next week as well. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeerd. You can follow us on the World Wide Web at techtalkradio.com.
Have a great week.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.